Hi there, thanks for tuning in again. I've had a bit of a sort through of my Spectrum games lately. It made me realise that I've got an awful lot of games by Ocean Software and their sub-label Imagine. Not surprisingly, I suppose, as they were one of the biggest publishers, if not the biggest publisher on the Spectrum. So I've organised them in year order. So we've got the games on the left here are the ones from early Ocean days, 1984, all the way over to Total Recall from 1991. Lots of games in between, as you'd imagine. I don't generally tend to buy the poorer games. I'm not a great one for completion or anything like that, so the games I've got here are generally the ones I liked as a kid or wanted to try, and I think it's a bunch of pretty good games by Ocean, to be honest, and Imagine. So let's have a look through the years, as I say. So it would be quite interesting to see the change in box formats as well that Ocean used. But starting over here, 1984, the first game we got up, obviously these are generally original games they had then, Cavalon, which was coded I think by Christian Urquhart. I've never actually played this one. I bought it because I had heard of it but never played it, so I hope to get around to playing that soon. Daily Thompson's Decathlon, which of course everyone will know, and we've already gone from the single cassette design here to the clamshell for this game, although I believe it did come on a single cassette as well. John Rittman's famous Match Day, which was a great little football game, only superseded by its sequel and a couple of other footy games later on in the Spectrum's life, so that again came on a clamshell cassette box there. So they were 1984, those games, so moving onwards now we're into 1985, where Ocean really stepped up their game a lot, began to do a lot more licensed product, as we can see. So first of all we got an original game still, Cosmic Water, which was a really fun little type adventure type game with a rather irreverent sense of humour. That was in single box again. They carried on using the clamshell design for their Imagine games, Ocean. They bought the name, the rights, the Imagine, after they went bust the year before, and they were quite nice. They did the sort of uniform design on these. These are all Konami arcade conversions, so they were quite nice. So imagine if you're a collector, it's nice seeing all those up on a shelf. So there you go, all still clamshells, Mikey, Hypersports and Yar Kung Fu, so 3 great games there. And then finally for 85, Ocean, in these days it was quite unusual to have these big box games, but they went to town on this video game interpretation of the band Frankie Goes to Hollywood. I remember getting this with my Crash subscription a year or so later after it was released. Came with a free tape, the copy of Relax by the band, the famous band song, which was included with the game, and it was a really interesting game as well. You had to solve a murder, but that was kind of a side quest really. Your main thing was trying to solve or get all these points to become a real human or a real person. It sounds a bit odd, and it was a bit odd to be honest, but it had a great bunch of mini games in it and was really good fun to play. So that was Frankie, so a nice big box for Frankie, quite unusual in those days. Welcome to the pleasure game. Moving into 86 now. I thought this game came out a bit earlier, but actually it did come out in 86. Green Beret, which was a brilliant conversion of the arcade game, which I think was called Russian Attack. I don't think it was called Green Beret in the arcades, or not in all the arcades anyway. So that was a really cool run and stab game. Cobra, another license, the first of Ocean's big movie licenses in the winter of 1986. Nightmare Rally, they were still doing the occasional original game, and this was a really cool little racing game. Movie, another original game, which was by a Serbian or Croatian, I can't remember which he is, she's a bit bad really, but his name's Dusko Dimitrovic, and I interviewed him for Retro Gamer, and he did this like 3D gumshoe type game, so it was in the style of Night Law, but introduced all sorts of different elements like icon control and shooting, and also speech bubbles as well, so it's quite a fun game. And finally, John Rittman's Batman. So John did a 3D game of himself after being very impressed with Night Law. So there's Batman. That's 86. Next up we have 87, and the first game is Match Day 2, which I played too much. I absolutely love this game. It was a bit slow. Playing it now it seems really slow, but I really love Match Day 2. I think it's a brilliant football game, so great follow-up. That was Crash Smashed. Top Gun was also Crash Smashed, but a bit bizarre really, because I didn't think it was that great a game, but it was still fun. It was a good little shooter. It was very limited. It came out in 87. Head Over Heels, John Rittman's follow-up to Batman.
revered by many, and including me. I think it's a great game, really good puzzler. Game Over, the famous game by Dynamic, which was re-released by Imagine. You see the screenshot there over the offending nipple that you could see on some adverts and covers, and I don't know if you can see it there, but a price tag. This is obviously the German copy, because it's sold for Deutschmarks 29.90, which must have been the Deutschmark equivalent of £8. And Renegade, which I think actually is the Amstrad version I've got here, but I've not actually played it on the Amstrad, but on the Speccy it's a very good arcade conversion. And finally Whizball, which I really enjoyed. I mean, the Commodore 64 version is, let's be honest, better, but it was still an amazing game on the Speccy as well. So Whizball, I think Whizball's got this famous misprint, yes, 2 Z's on the cassette, so not very rare, I'm afraid, or anything. I think most of them had that. So Whizball. So that's 87. As you can see, Ocean were really up in their game now, and they were using almost exclusively these double dual type cassette boxes, which have kind of come an industry standard. But things would change the next year, whereas Grisor and Guts and Firefly would all continue with the double dual standard, and some really good games there, especially Firefly, which was a really enjoyable shooter from Special FX. The larger box sizes were starting to come to the fore now. I don't think Wek Le Mans first, I think this one underneath was first for Ocean. They did Robocop, which was a huge smash hit. Big risk for them, because it was a bit of a sleeper hit, the movie. But Ocean produced this big box, and by the time the game was out, I'm sure they probably realised by then that it was a huge smash, and they were going to make an absolute mint out of this game. It was a decent game as well, to be fair, and it must be, I should imagine, if not the biggest selling game by Ocean, then certainly up there with a lot of other big sellers, I should imagine. So that's Robocop. It seemed to stay at #1 for ages, that game did. Platoon, which is in a very similar box to Frankie, and it also has a free music cassette with it, which was Tracks of My Tears by Smokey Robinson, song from the movie. Another crash smash, another excellent movie conversion this was, or movie game. And then let's go back to Wek Le Mans, which is in the same box as Robocop. So by now, these big boxes were becoming the norm, despite the fact that the contents didn't really justify it. It was all about the shelf space. Wek Le Mans was a pretty decent race, from what I remember. Got another crash smash. So that's 1988. Speccy getting to the end of its life now, but there's still some great games coming out. This is Operation Thunderbolt, which I actually preferred to Operation Wolf, which had come out the previous year. Another arcade conversion, of course, now, of which we're almost exclusively dealing with, along with movie adaptations, of course. The Untouchables. I think this is actually the Commodore 64 version I've got here. Yep, Commodore 64 version of the Untouchables. Batman the movie, which was another huge hit for Ocean. That might actually rival Robocop, that one. And by now, as you can see, Ocean were using this small, I always thought this was a bit odd, this small box style. So same size really as the double jewels. I don't know if it was cheaper or something, but yeah, very odd sort of small box type packaging they were using now. And Run the Gauntlet, which is the +3 disc version, which might be where it comes in this just slightly different jewel case, which was more used with Amiga and Atari ST games, I imagine, at the time. +3 version of Run the Gauntlet there. 1990, so the Speccy's really entering its retirement phase now. But Ocean was still releasing great games. This is Midnight Resistance, another arcade conversion, which was written by Jim Bagley. And Jim really did a great job of this. He did Guts as well, which we saw earlier, but this was really his crowning achievement, along with Cabal on the Speccy. Really great conversion of what was quite a complex arcade game graphically. So I think Jim did a superb job on that, and I believe it got a crash smash as well. Midnight Resistance, Rainbow Islands, another great conversion job by Ocean. So they were still banging out the great games in 1990. Ocean. I think this is the disc version as well, yep. Disc version of that, although the box is not in great condition. Robocop 2, which I must admit I've never played, but I assume it's fairly similar to the first game. So Robocop 2. So the last game to look at, Ocean game I've got to look at, and I must admit I know there are a few omissions from my Ocean collection which I'm trying to pick up. For instance, The Great Escape by Ocean was a superb 3D game, which I really need to get hold of a copy of that, and there's a few other
titles that I'd like to get, but I'm not a completist or anything like that, so I'm not looking to collect the rubbish games like It's a Knockout and Knight Rider, because apart from the fact they cost quite a lot of money, I just don't see the point in collecting in crappy games if you're not going for a complete set. But yeah, finally here we've got Total Recall from 1991, obviously adaptation of the Arnie movie, as you can see from the cover, and again in one of these like small cardboard box type packages, which were obviously proving very popular at the time. So there you go, there's my small but modest Ocean collection. Thanks for watching, and I'll post another video soon. Bye bye for now.